Well, hello to everyone who is joining us. Thank you. We're going to give everyone a few seconds to log on into our 2019-2020 Medical Research Scholars Program informational webinar. We have a lovely panel of guests here representing the program to give you all some beneficial information. So once again, let's get started in about a minute. Okay, so let's get this ball rolling. Thank you again for joining us. And just some information, the National Institutes of Health Medical Research Scholars Program is a public-private partnership supported jointly by the NIH and generous contributions to the Foundation for the NIH from the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation, the American Association for Dental Research, the Colgate-Palmolive Company, Elsevier, alumni of the program, and other individual supporters. So today we are going to give you a program overview, talk about some of the administrative topics, the application process, and we have our lovely scholar panel here who's going to talk about their experience in the Medical Research Scholars Program. We're also going to have a question and answer section at the completion of this Facebook Live event. So please feel free to submit those questions via the Facebook Live comments, or you may also email your questions to mrsp@nih.gov. We will read those questions aloud and then provide answers to your inquiries. So now I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Kenny Williams, Program Administrator of the MRSP. Kenny.
Thank you. On behalf of the MRSP Director, we would like to welcome you to the 2019-2020 MRSP Informational Webinar. Our Director, Dr. Tom Burklow, could not be with us today, but he would like us to thank you all for joining us. Our mission for the MRSP is to be the premier training program for future clinician scientists that advances health by inspiring careers in biomedical research. The MRSP is not only a training opportunity for health professional school students, but it is a career development program for students heading toward careers in biomedical research that is centered around a robust investigation experience. At this time, I'd like to pass this webinar information on to our academic director, Dr. Susan Lightman.
This is Dr. Lightman speaking. Thank you, Kenny, and I'd like to reiterate your comments welcoming the participants on this MRSP webinar. The decision to take a year off from medical, dental, or veterinary school is a difficult one, and we know you're considering many choices for the next step in your pre-professional training. We hope to show you that spending a year doing research can be one of the most exciting, enriching, and rewarding experiences of your training thus far, and can be transformative in terms of the direction your medical career takes you. And what better place to do it than at the NIH Clinical Center, the world's largest hospital dedicated entirely to clinical research. The MRSP is a comprehensive year-long residential research enrichment program for medical, dental, and veterinary students. Research is conducted on the NIH Intramural Research Campus in Bethesda, Maryland. Scholars are engaged in a closely mentored basic, translational, or clinical research project in an area that matches their personal interests and career goals. Since 2012, more than 310 students have been selected as MRSP scholars. There's a diagram that you can look at now or later that shows you the 27 institutes and centers at the NIH, each of which offers unique and broad opportunities to explore scientific and clinical research interests. To highlight just some of these, for example, NIAID, the Allergy and Immunology Institute, is involved in cutting-edge molecular work clarifying cytokine signaling networks that lead to deficiencies in T and B cell function. They're also engaged in critically important work on emerging and established infectious diseases such as Zika, Ebola, and HIV. NIAMS, the Arthritis Institute, has powerhouse labs working on the cellular mechanisms involved in autoimmune disease, including newly described autoinflammatory syndromes. NHLBI, the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, has super labs working on the genetic causes of bone marrow failure syndromes and identifying driver mutations in hematologic malignancies, and also some very exciting work on the association of inflammation with atherosclerotic heart disease. The Human Genome Institute, NHGRI, is involved in high-throughput genome sequencing studies, discovering the genetic underpinnings of previously unexplained disorders. Other examples, the Neurology Institute is a favorite choice of scholars with exciting research on the pathogenesis of inherited and acquired motor neuron diseases, neurodegenerative disorders, and disorders of cognition. In NIMHD, that's the Minority Health Institute, there's a strong research effort in epidemiology and the social determinants of health. The National Library of Medicine, another example, NLM, has a highly active bioinformatics center for those interested in computational biology, data analytics, and machine learning. The Dental Institute has a robust research program in skeletal and mucosal health. And as a last example, I'll choose NCI, the National Cancer Institute, the largest of the institutes on campus, whose research labs are too many to describe, but where epigenetic studies on chromatin folding and control of gene expression are breaking new ground, and where many scholars have been part of the concentrated effort to harness the power of the immune system to combat cancer. Your lab project, your investigative core experience, forms the center of your MRSP year, and you'll spend 75 to 80% of your time in the lab working closely with your research mentor and lab colleagues. Additional career counseling is supplied by an ongoing relationship with an MRSP advisor whom you will be assigned upon selection into the program. But that's not all. The MRSP provides each scholar with longitudinal mentorship beyond their research mentor and advisor. Just as important is the network of colleagues and co-scholars with whom you'll forge close friendships and even research collaborations, and who will remain as resources to you for the rest of your career. In addition, there's an academic curriculum of journal clubs, process of discovery lectures, clinical teaching rounds, and career development workshops on developing interview skills and CV writing, as well as a workshop on finding balance between medicine and life beyond medicine. In addition to your mentor, each MRSP scholar is assigned an advisor. The MRSP advisor helps the scholar identify a research mentor early in the year and offers guidance and career counseling throughout the year. The MRSP research mentor, that all-important mentor, oversees your research project progress and is selected by you prior to or shortly after arriving at NIH. There are more than 350 approved NIH mentors to choose from. Mentorship is a key part of this program. You'll have the opportunity to carefully select your mentor and even try out several labs for a few days each when you first arrive to see if they're a good fit and which is the best fit for you. And while this process might seem daunting, given the numbers we've just shown you, there's plenty of help from your advisor, the program director, the academic director, and the MRSP program staff. The MRSP is unique in that it gives you wide reign to explore your research interests. You're at one of the premier research institutions in the world, and you'll have access to resources that you likely would not have elsewhere. In addition to your research, MRSP scholars are engaged in a specific program curriculum. This includes every other week process of discovery lectures by highly accomplished senior intramural scientific staff who highlight the continuum of scientific discovery. These lectures take place every other Monday evening, and I think that many of us find the POD process of discovery series to be especially enjoyable because it allows some exceptional scientists to share with us how they got to be where they are now. These individuals are Alaska Prize winners, Nobel laureates, if we can get them, members of the National Academy of Sciences, and more generally speaking, pioneers in their field. There are also once monthly grade teacher breakfasts with visiting academic scholars, which gives you the opportunity to interact in a more informal manner with the Grand Rounds Great Teachers Lecturer. There are also bi-weekly Wednesday afternoon journal club presentations by you and your MRSP colleagues. And if by the end of this year you cannot give a superb PowerPoint presentation, then we've done something wrong. Bi-weekly clinical teaching rounds featuring patients participating in research protocols at the NIH Clinical Center are presented by the principal investigators on these protocols and really give you a very granular example of what it's like to go from the bench to the bedside. And I'll end with a picture of our current class, the MRSP class of 2018-2019. There are 37 MRSP scholars, 3 in their second year, 32 in their third year, 2 in the fourth year, 34 are in medical school, 2 in dental school, and 1 in veterinary school. And for the first time this year, there were more women than men participating in the program. In addition, this year we have 5 scholars who are staying an additional year as an NIH Intramural Trainee Awardee to continue the very exciting and successful research they started during their MRSP year, and you'll hear from one of them in a moment. So thank you, and I'd like to pass the rest of the next part of this talk to Tanya Shackelford.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Shackelford, one of the MRSP administrators, and I would like to discuss benefits offered by the program. Each participant is offered a 12-month stipend totaling approximately $37,000. Also, relocation after your arrival to the NIH and your departure at the conclusion of the program year are offered. We also offer residential housing located either directly on the NIH campus or adjacent to the NIH campus. Please note, rental fees are paid by the students. Also, we offer an education fund of $2,000 for every scholar. With this $2,000, you may attend a domestic conference, or you may purchase textbooks related to your area of interest or your lab. Also, this $2,000 may support a tuition course, scientific course offered by the Foundation for Advanced Education in the Sciences. An additional benefit, we offer health insurance, and this health insurance is in addition to your monthly stipend. Also, you may be duly covered, so if you already have health insurance, you won't have to drop your health insurance to participate in the health insurance program at the NIH. At this time, I'm going to turn this next process over to Kenny Williams, who is the other administrator, and he'll discuss the application cycle.
Thank you, Mrs. Shackelford, and hello again. At this time, we want to let you know about the timeline for the 2019-2020 NIH MRSP. October 1st is when we opened up the application, and the deadline is January 11th of 2019. Mid-February is when we notify the applicants of their interview status. Early March, we interview the candidates here at the NIH, and that gives you everyone. So I want to talk briefly about the eligibility criteria of the NIH MRSP. Medical students participate after their second, third, or fourth year, and dental and veterinary students generally participate after second or fourth years, and that's due to the integrated nature of their clinical years. Students who have completed their first year qualify to participate in the program. You must be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident of the U.S., and also be in good standing at your health professional academic institution. You also need approval from your dean or associate dean of student affairs. Prior research experience is desirable, but it is not required. Applicants who are in their fourth year must defer graduation until completion of the NIH MRSP, and fourth year applicants that are in the National Residency Matching Program are ineligible to apply or participate in the MRSP. So the application itself is an online web-based application. It consists of your personal statement, your CV, 3 supporting letters of recommendation. One should be from your dean or associate dean of student affairs. That letter should also be a supporting full letter of recommendation, but also giving you the approval to take a year away from your academic institution. And you also have to provide us with your unofficial health professional school transcripts as well as your undergraduate transcripts. So I'll give this section back over to Dr. Susan Lightman to give you all some insight on tips for successful application.
Thank you, Kenny. So one of the most common questions that I'm asked by potential applicants is, what does it make to have a successful application? And so I recommend that you write the strongest possible personal statement in which you clearly articulate why you want to participate in the MRSP, including those past experiences, personal, clinical, or research, that led to this decision and how it would inform your future career plans. In addition, solicit the 3 best letters of recommendation possible, ensuring your 2 professional references are from people who can speak to your success and your personal attributes. Preferably someone who you've worked with or worked under in the last couple of years in your professional school. But if you engaged in research prior to that for an extended length of time during your undergraduate years, or maybe if you took a break between college and professional school, that person would also be a fine reference. Kenny?
Thank you, Dr. Lightman. So at this time, we're going to pass this section on to our panel of past and present NIH MRSP scholars. We'll start off with Kristen Pan. Kristen?
Hi, my name is Kristen Pan, and I am currently in between my 3rd and 4th year at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. I am currently working at the Dental and Craniofacial Institute because I am interested in a career in craniofacial plastic surgery. And my current projects include the phenotyping of a mouse model of fibrous dysplasia, as well as an analysis of the genetic contributions to malignant transformation of fibrous dysplasia. I am actually one of the scholars who participated in the 2017 to 2018 year, so I am here for a 2nd year. I decided to take the year off because medical school to do the MRSP because I was interested in gaining more knowledge about being a scientist. I had some experience in undergrad and limited experience after my 1st year of medical school. And before residency, I really wanted to really have a more enriching, immersive experience. And so I decided on the MRSP program. And one of the reasons why I decided on that was because of the embedded curriculum. I thought that was really important if you were going to take this time off from med school to kind of stay on top of your medical knowledge and still have some of that involved in the research year. During my time as an MRSP student, I had a very productive experience. I got to go to several domestic and international conferences, write papers, write grants. I think that the year was incredible, which is obviously why I decided to stay on for a second year. One of the unique things here that they mentioned is that there is a grad school on campus, and currently I'm participating in one of those courses that I highly recommend. It's the workshop for writing a scientific paper, and it's only a 4-week course, but at the end of it, you write a complete draft of your manuscript, so it's kind of a good way to get that done. But those are some of my experiences here, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kristen. And now we'll move on to Rogelio Medina.
So, good afternoon. I'm Rogelio Medina. I am a medical student at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. And similar to Kristen, I am between my 3rd and 4th year of medical school. In terms of my research interest, I'm interested in pursuing a career in neurosurgery. And this year I am focusing a research project that is looking into adapting an innate and an adaptive immune response against glioma through peripheral sensitization of these immune systems. And so far, my experiences here have been incredibly great. They've really showed me a lot about the research process. So why did I apply to the MRSP program? I really wanted to go ahead and get a comprehensive research experience that would allow me to think about a research question and then have a strong mentorship component that would take me from not just developing strategies as to how to answer that question, but also think about how the research could be applied and translated into the clinical setting. And so, as you probably already know, the NIH is a premier institution with really leading scientists that are doing this kind of work. And so if you are interested in really gaining a more robust research experience that is comprehensive and immersive in nature, I really would highly encourage you to look into the NIH MRSP program and come meet the team.
Thank you, Rogelio. And now we'll pass it on to Sydney Stein.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sydney Stein. I am a post-4th year veterinary student at the University of Missouri College of Veterinary Medicine. And this year I am working in Dr. Daniel Sherto's lab that has a dual appointment in the clinical center with the critical care medical department and also in the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. My main project is working on Zika virus in a rhesus macaque model, and I'm also working on a meta-analysis for non-human primate sepsis models while I'm here. And I decided to apply for the MRSP because I felt that I didn't necessarily get much experience with research in veterinary school, and I had done some in undergrad and was considering whether or not to go on to a PhD program, which I'm still contemplating at this moment. And I have also just finished my Master of Public Health, and I know that I'm looking to go into the veterinary public health sector of our profession. And so I wanted to come here and gain further skills in research and investigation, and also in scientific writing that I haven't really had the opportunity to do before.
Thank you, Sydney. Next is Stephen Langerman.
Thank you, Kenny. So my name is Stephen Langerman. I'm a medical student at George Washington University, which is right down the road from here. I'm between my 3rd and 4th years of medical school, and I am interested in health disparities and social determinants of health. So this year I'm working in the lab of Dr. Tiffany Powell-Wiley. The title of our lab is the Social Determinants of Obesity and Cardiovascular Risk Laboratory, and I'm personally working on a project that uses multi-level modeling to try to further discern information about the relationship between neighborhood socioeconomic deprivation and mental health outcomes like depression. Basically, I decided to apply to the program for a number of reasons. Coming into medical school, I had never engaged in any kind of research at all. However, I got involved in a little bit of health disparities related research during my 1st year of med school, and I loved it. And I knew that it's something that I wanted to make a significant part of my life. But I quickly realized that with all of the demands of medical school, it was going to be difficult to really devote a fair amount of time to that passion. And so I decided upon doing a year-out program. There were a few things that really set the MRSP apart from my perspective as opposed to other similar programs. One is, as Kristen mentioned, the embedded curriculum. We get to have these opportunities to learn from some really eminent scholars in their fields about a number of different things, and more broadly to learn about how the research process works and what these careers can look like. So just as an example, yesterday we had a informal breakfast with the chair of psychiatry at UT Southwestern. And then this afternoon, we're going to be hearing from a very, very eminent scholar who studies hypereosinophilic syndromes. So these are the types of things that we get to do in kind of an average week here in the program. So that was a big draw for me. Another big draw is that this program really does have a great deal of social cohesion. We all live together in one building right next to the NIH main hospital. And so you get to be around a lot of other people who are in the same stage of life that we're in. And that's really fun, really gratifying, and a great learning experience as well. And then finally, I would say that there's just so many opportunities around the NIH. We talked about the graduate school that's available here. There are also tons and tons of people constantly coming in to speak about their passions. And so there are many, many opportunities to learn about things here at the NIH and to meet people who can be really, really influential in your career and help you learn more about the directions in which you could potentially take your life. And so in sum, I would just say I've had a really, really personally enjoyable year here. And I also feel like this program is setting me up very well from an academic perspective. I think I have learned a great deal of research skills. I also think that I will probably have some doors opened as a result of the people that I've gotten to know here and the skills that I've developed. So I'm really grateful to the program, and I would encourage you to apply.
That's awesome, Stephen. Thank you. And I think I heard you mention the word gratifying. What's very much gratifying for our team, administrative and leadership, is the fact that we're involved with the growth and the progress that they're making here. As I listen to Rogelio and Sydney and Stephen, and I'll pass it on to Quinn Winch right after, it's just amazing that it's only been 5 months, and you all, were, I'd say in March of this year, you were introducing yourself and excited about the opportunity. And it's a privilege and a pleasure to be a part of your educational and career pathways. That's my part. I'm excited about this program, and you all should be as well. At this time, I'm going to pass it on to Quinn Wynn.
Thank you, Kenny. Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn Wynn, and I am a rising fourth-year dental student at the University of Mississippi Medical Center School of Dentistry. Kind of opposed to Stephen, I'm come a little further away. But so currently I am working in Dr. Janice Lee Basic Science Lab on unraveling the molecular and the mechanism on how a transforming growth factor mutation affect enamel organs. And on top of that, I'm also phenotyping dental manifestation in Lewis D syndrome patients, as well as the dental public health in this cohort. So the reason why I chose MRSP is because I'm really admire the purpose of this program, which is to foster the development of students into clinician scientists. And just looking back over the course of 5 months, it's amazed me how much I've learned from just numerous experiments, learning why it's important in my research, and as well as phenotyping very extreme severe dental manifestation, which I know that I won't be able to receive anywhere else. And thanks to MRSP, I have an amazing opportunity to work with a mentor who is an excellent oral and maxillofacial surgeon and a researcher, which is a role model to me. And it's really helped me solidify the reason why I want to maintain research as an important component in my future career. And as of course, I love spending time with my MRSP friends, and we had a great time. We meet each other often and checking out just different cuisines and exploring the city of Bethesda and DC. So I'm really highly recommend you guys to apply, and especially as a dental student, and it's very durable for you to even apply between your 3rd and 4th year, which Kenny hasn't mentioned. So I just want to kind of touch upon that.
Thank you, Quinn. So you all, we want to thank you all for joining us. At this point, I'm going to start the question and answer portion of this webinar.
Okay, we actually have a question for Ms. Kristen. You indicated that you took a scientific paper writing course. What are some other example of courses that would be available during the program? So Kristen, if there were any other courses that you were interested in, if you could list those, and then Dr. Lyman, if you would like to go into more detail, please do.
There is a variety of courses. They have a whole catalog. I think that one of the most popular ones that most of the scholars are interested in, and I was interested in, is the statistics courses. and all of the other courses on even just using some of the softwares, writing code, and some of those skills. I know there are other courses in, every pretty much field of science, genetics, biology. I know that Dr. Lightman knows probably a lot more of the courses than I do.
So the FAS grad school has a grad school arm and a biotech arm. And the grad school courses are mostly in the evening, so you can easily attend those. Those are right on campus, and they fit in very well with your schedule. And there's everything from very basic to applied medical sciences in every field. So it's really too broad to mention. If you're more interested, go online and look up FAS Graduate School course catalog. The biotech courses are hands-on, and those tend to take from 2 to 3 days away from your laboratory. So you have to clear that with your mentor, but often the your mentor would like you to take those courses so you can bring a new technique like single-cell RNA sequencing or something like that into the laboratory. The most common courses that I see scholars take are two. One is a medical writing course, and the other is one of several statistics courses. For example, there's a course that's just called R, and that's very popular. So you're welcome to look this up online. The material is available.
Thank you. Another question is cancer and hematology research available through the MRSP with a great mentor. Cancer and hematology.
What is the question?
Is that area available to do research through the MRSP?
There's two entire institutes. One is NHLBI, the H is hematology. There's a vast effort in benign and malignant hematology in the NHLBI. So the hematology branch chief is Dr. Neil Young, and there's a transplant branch chief and a sickle cell branch chief and a bone marrow failures branch chief. And so there's a huge variety of hematologic basic and clinical research going on. The NCI is the largest, moving to your second part of your question, the NCI Cancer Institute is the largest institute on campus and gets about 60% of all the NIH resources because cancer is common and cancer kills. And there's too many investigators to list. Again, it's everything from the most basic mechanism of what controls chromatin and DNA to very clinical studies on how to, I think I mentioned this, how to harness the forces of the immune system using newer agents to combat cancer. So is everything from soup to nuts at both institutes with lots of mentors available.
Thank you. We have an application process question. Mr. Kenny Williams, if I have sent out my letters of reference, how do I know whether or not they have been submitted? Should I follow up with my reference to confirm?
Thank you, and good question. So you have a few options. When you hit or select, the submit button, your letters of recommendation, inquiries, and requests will be sent to your 3-letter writers. If you save your application, then that may be a burden in terms of the letter of recommendation request going out to them. You can also send a message to our mailbox to inquire, to confirm as well, and we'll be glad to help you to make sure that you're aware of the status of your application and the letters of recommendation going out to your letter writers.
Kenny, I want to ask you for clarification.
Yes,
if
ma'am.
one hits submit, that generates the request from MRSP to the 3-letter writers. If
No,
one is
that is incorrect.
So if you
Yes. So,
say that again.
So the applicants have 2 options. If, say, for instance, if they are still working on their CV or their personal statement and they want to save their application and come back, they do have the opportunity to select save, as well as have the letter of recommendation request go out by, yes. So you have to hit submit in order for those to go out, or you hit the save button and the letters of recommendation will go out as well. Sorry, y'all. So thank you, Dr. Lightman, for reiterating that. There is a send reference letter request on the online application, and that's all you have to select.
So you can send reference letter without hitting submit.
Yes,
So you're
ma'am.
still in the process of saving what you've uploaded,
Yes.
but you can request the letters of reference before you.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Are scholars able to publish articles in journals?
Absolutely. My lab right now, the project I'm working on with the Zika virus and the rhesus macaque model, we are currently looking at least 2 publications on that. They may come out after I am already gone, but I will be integrally involved in getting those written up until the time that I leave, and hopefully after if necessary. And then the other project I'm working on, the meta-analysis, is also going to be at least 1, possibly 2 papers once we get through it and see how much data is available. So I would say that you definitely have the ability to publish works and be pretty far up on the author list, depending on how much of the work that you do yourself.
I think I can speak to this for having completed the full year. Within my MRSP year, I was the first author of 2 papers that were my projects that I saw from start to finish. And then I was also co-author on several additional papers. So that kind of just depends on your lab and the extra time you have outside of your project. But at least in my year, I was able to do my main MRSP project from start to finish and write the paper within that first year.
So in answer to that question, we define and look at the metrics of our success as a program, and there's many metrics. One of them is writing a full manuscript as a first author and getting it published in a good journal. And that is clearly one of the things we want the scholars to experience. Because a year where it may seem kind of long to you now, it's a little bit short to start, do, and end a research project. So sometimes these papers are not published. They're in process, but not published until after you're still working on them, until after you leave. But what we see, it's not uncommon, is that the scholar is first author on something they really have ownership of, and is second author or middle author on multiple other projects that were going on in the laboratory that they contributed to. They had a certain technique they brought into the lab, or a certain technique they became very good at, or a certain type of analysis like R they became very good at. And so they contributed a substantial amount to additional papers. In addition, almost every scholar presents their work at a national meeting, gets at least one presentation in terms of a podium or a poster presentation at a national meeting. Good question.
Thank you. Next question. Does the program prefer second or third year applicants?
Whatever. It does not matter to us. Whatever is the better time for you. We used to prefer third year applicants because we felt if they had a time to sample all the clinical fields available to them in their third year of medical school, they would have a better idea of which direction, which field of concentration their career was going into. And so the majority of our scholars are third year. But we've had such outstanding second year students that if second year is the right time for you, then it's fine with us.
Thank you. How does the review process work? Is it a rolling process, or does my application go for review as soon as I press the submit button?
Great question. So the application process that ends on January 11th, that is the time frame when the review process begins. So the applications are not reviewed and screened until after the deadline.
Thank you. Are participants able to do research related to health disparities and population-based research?
So I can speak to that. My project and my laboratory are devoted pretty exclusively to health disparities and population-based research. And so that is definitely an area in which you're able to focus. There are usually a few students each year focusing in that area. I would say this year, roughly 4 or 5 students are doing something that is related to epidemiology or population health. I think there are a number of great opportunities there. So the NIH, broadly speaking, is most known, I think, for basic research, but there are definitely opportunities to do population health research, definitely opportunities to do clinical and translational research as well with this program.
So thank you, Stephen. I want to add something to that. So if you asked that question 10 years ago, we might have said, perhaps this program's not the right program for you. But population health and health disparities research has undergone a sea change in the last 5 to 6 years with the arrival of a new director of a new institute, the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities. And I'd say, just to reiterate what Stephen said, I'd say more than 10% of scholars, 4 if the class size is 40, 5 if it's 50, have had as their major research project social determinants of health, health disparities, epidemiologic studies on health resources. So it is a very active, robust area with depth on this campus.
Thank you. We had a housing question. Okay, we are back up and running. We do apologize for these breaks in this webinar. Please bear with us. We are in DC, where we did get hit with a little minor winter storm that we weren't expecting to be as bad as it has resulted in being. So thank you for your patience. We are back. So the question that we ended with was, as a participant, can I have direct clinical patient contact during my research year?
Thank you for that question. This year is considered a research training year, not a clinical training year. So NIH does not indemnify you or provide you with liability against accidents that you may incur or patients you may be taking care of incur in the course of you taking care of them. So it does not include direct patient care. But there are major exceptions, which are that there are several medical schools in which a research year is mandatory. And in those schools, you remain enrolled, actively matriculated as a student in medical school during those research years, and your medical school program indemnifies you for direct clinical care during those years. So if you're from one of those medical schools, you will have a clinical mentor in addition to your research mentor during this year. It could be the same person, depending on the type of research that person does. So in general, the answer is no, you cannot engage in direct clinical care because this is a research training year, unless you're in one of those medical schools in which seeing patients this year is part of the research year. Having said that, we have many students who shadow their mentors. So they don't engage in direct clinical care, but they may go on rounds, on sit-in rounds, on walk rounds, just to continue to hear patient stories and listen to clinical presentations during this year, not as a direct care provider, but as an observer, so you don't forget your clinical skills.
Thank you. We have someone who's interested in surgery and reconstruction. Being interested in that field, will there be opportunities in this program for those related fields?
So there is no department of plastic surgery, at least here at the clinical center. However, I think that you can get really creative, and if you're interested in that, you can definitely find a lab that will have exposure to that. I think that, for example, I'm interested in plastic surgery, especially the craniofacial pediatric aspect, which is why I'm at the Dental and Craniofacial Institute. I think that if you work in a cancer lab or at the NCI, and where there's reconstruction involved, there's opportunities there. And I think even though that there isn't a necessarily a department here, if you're in a clinical lab, you still can be in contact with surgeons from other institutes that you're collaborating with.
So we get that question most often from students interested in careers in orthopedics and orthopedic research. And there is no department of orthopedics on campus. But exactly as Kristen said, it makes it more fun because you get creative in looking for a mentor, and you can find one. There are several outstanding skeletal biology laboratories, and there's an entire department in the Clinical Center of Rehabilitation Medicine. And so scholars interested in orthopedic research have very interesting years. And we help you find mentors. So if it's not an obvious field like hematology or oncology or immunology, the program staff, the academic director, the program director, suggest mentors to you for you to look into.
Thank you. So we have another question for the scholars. How have you kept up with your clinical skills during your year off? How do you think the participation in this program will affect your clinical skills?
I guess I can take that question. In terms of how do we keep up with the clinical skills, I think the onus is on you. If you have a mentor that has a lot more clinical exposure, well, the initiative is on you to really create that opportunity for yourself to spend some time in the clinical setting so that you don't, I guess, forget about the important clinical skills that you probably gathered in your first 3 years of medical school. The second element about how do we feel, or at least for me, how do I feel about how this year will impact my clinical skills? I think certainly I'm not going to say that I'm going to go into my fourth year as fresh as the day that I finished my third year. But I think you got to take everything into context, and you got to weigh the marginal benefit and the marginal cost of taking this year. Of course, the marginal benefit of this is really you're going to come out as a clinician researcher, and you have to evaluate the value that you're going to be able to apport to the clinical setting with a good research understanding. In terms of the marginal cost, well, of course, you're going to have to take a step back and refresh yourself the clinical skills that you really developed and really mastered during your first 3 years of medical school. So in terms of how it's going to impact me, I would say in the immediate term, it's probably going to be a 1 to 2 week period of really trying to readjust. In the long run, I really don't think it's going to do a dent in anything in terms of my clinical ability.
I also think that even though we don't have direct patient care or contact, at least if you are working in any sort of clinical lab, as part of my research, I read notes every day. I screen potential patients that are going to join our protocol, and I give presentations weekly at round on those patients. And I think that just through that alone, you're not doing a physical exam or you're not actually interviewing a patient, but that's really good practice, and it keeps you thinking about differential diagnosis and so forth. And I don't think that I'm not worried about losing clinical knowledge.
So this is Dr. Lightman. In June and July, at the end of the year, I hear from a lot of scholars who are nervous about going back into fourth year because they might feel rusty, especially those who were going right into a big sub-internship in their field of interest, because that's how it works. You have to get a reference and in that field in August, September before application starts. And they talk to me about how have other scholars done, are they as nervous as I am? And so that's not uncommon. Even though clinical medicine has been at the forefront still in your minds during this year for all the reasons that the scholars just mentioned. You don't forget about it. You see it all the time. This is a hospital, and the research labs are located in a research hospital. What I hear back from the scholars is it was not a problem. So after the first day or two, that clinical knowledge that you gained comes roaring back. Really, it's still there.
Thank you. What attributes and experiences is the program most looking for in medical applicants?
That is a loaded question.
Yes.
So we're looking for applicants who genuinely want to make research a part of their career pathway. They're not quite sure they can do it. They're not quite sure they can be leaders in it. They don't quite know how it's done. Are they original or creative or team workers, or do they have what it takes to be successful in research because clinical care, they come up against the wall of clinical care, which is that a lot is not known, and they want to move their field forward, and they're excited about the potential of being able to do that. So we want that passion to see if research can be made part of their career. We want to see students who the application show evidence of someone who can work very hard, who's quite diligent, who's original, who may not know even what field they're going to go into, but they know what they want to bring to that field and what they want to learn from this year to bring more to that field. So we need mature individuals. This is a sort of a self-starter program. Many of the mentors, after the first couple of months, think that there'll be a certain amount of independence in how you're working in the laboratory. So all of those characteristics.
Thank you. Scholars, is it difficult to find time to maintain a healthy work-life balance during the duration of the program?
Absolutely not. This is this is honestly the best work-life balance I've had since starting professional school, so I wouldn't worry about that. It will probably be harder for you if you're going back to a program. I am not going back to a program because I am coming to do this after my 4th year, but I can say that this has been a huge shift in my life for the positive. And I think that you will very much enjoy the amount of free time you have after your laboratory duties. It's not that you don't spend a lot of time in the lab or work very hard, but you have, in my opinion, way more free time thereafter than you ever would during your didactics or your clinical studies.
Does any other scholar have any thoughts on that?
And I agree, definitely. There's a really good work-life balance, and I think that is really prioritized amongst the student body here. I think everyone really wants to work hard, so it's really efficient during the day, and then in the afternoon, there's really a lot of free time for you to use to in whatever way you desire. So yeah, I mean, I gotta agree. I haven't had this kind of balance in a long time. I think it has really is going to help me out once I return back to the 4th year and really dive back into the hustle and bustle of applications.
I think Steve mentioned the cohesion that exists among the scholars, and scholars do activities with each other. So at the end of the year, when they're creating this PowerPoint presentation, there's all these pictures of things that happened that we had no idea about. There's whitewater rafting trips in West Virginia. There's skiing trips somewhere. There's the Halloween pumpkin carving things, very cute pumpkins, and lots of activities that the scholars organize during the course of the year as they become very close friends. And what we hear from former scholars who are on staff at NIH is that they go places together 10 years later. I think Dr. Clint Allen said went on a trip to Hawaii or some exotic place with a number of the other scholars from his year. So these are tight, close, long-term friendships that are made here.
So in line with that same question, can we just get an example of what one of your typical days would be like? You wake up in the morning and see your beautiful face in the mirror. What happens after that?
I think that it depends on what part of your year you're in. I will say there are times where you're going to work really, really hard and long hours, and if you're preparing for a conference or you have a deadline, something like that, like a paper. So there definitely are times where you work on the weekend and you work late, or you have experiments that take all day and night. So that happens. It's not like, a walk in the park, but I think that the average day, at least for me, I work out in the morning, every morning, and I get to work at 8, which is really early compared to at least most of my lab members. Most people come in around like 9:30, and I leave between 4 and 5. Sometimes later, depending on what work I have to do. But I think, and then I don't typically work after I leave. I do like to work on the weekends, but that's just my personal, I think, OCD a little bit. But that's definitely not required at all.
Thank you. So at this time, we are going to conclude our Facebook Live event. This Facebook Live was unfortunately broken up into 3 sections. We will combine those so that when you go back to Facebook, you will be able to see it in its entirety in one viewing. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please continue to email those questions to mrsp@nih.gov, and you can also find the information that we discussed during this event on our webpage and which was provided to you all in the Facebook comments. And follow the NIH Clinical Center Facebook page for more information. Best of luck to all of our applicants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.